French Prime Minister, Michel Barnier, has been forced to quit his job after the government in the country collapsed. It was brought down by a no-confidence vote on Wednesday. A no-confidence vote gives MPs of all parties the chance to have their say about whether the sitting government should carry on running the country. Barnier's government collapsed after Parliament overwhelmingly backed a motion of no confidence, just 3 months into his tenure as Prime Minister under President Emmanuel Macron. It comes after Mr Barnier used special powers to force through an unpopular budget at the start of the week, without the approval of Parliament. Mr Barnier becomes the first French Prime Minister to be removed in this way in more than 60 years. France is one of the most powerful members of the European Union (EU), but it has a huge public debt, which is money owed by the government, and twice as much as the limit set by the EU. As a result, Mr Barnier used special powers to force an unpopular budget through Parliament on Monday, to try and reduce the debt, without MPs having a vote. This angered lots of MPs, and 2 different political parties decided to trigger a debate on the future of the French Prime Minister, which was followed by a vote on whether or not to remove him. Mr Barnier defended pushing his budget through without parliamentary approval, saying he worked with both chambers of Parliament to develop the document. A total of 288 votes were needed in order for the government to collapse, and 311 votes were cast in favor of getting rid of Mr Barnier, just 3 months after he was appointed by President Emmanuel Macron. The historic vote, which took place Wednesday night, marked the first time in over 60 years that a French government has been toppled by Parliament. France now risks entering a new year without a government or a budget. Mr Barnier is expected to officially hand in his resignation to President Emmanuel Macron later, but he may stay on until Mr Macron finds someone to replace him. President Macron is under pressure to act quickly to name a new Prime Minister. It has also been announced that the French President will give a televised speech to the nation on Thursday evening. Mr Macron has previously said he would not resign whatever the outcome of Wednesday's vote. Barnier resigned on Thursday, and the budget was automatically withdrawn. He will remain in office on a caretaker basis with his ministers until a new government is appointed. Macron's role is unaffected. In the UK, the Prime Minister is usually the leader of the largest political party in Parliament, the team with the most MPs chosen at a general election. That's why Sir Keir Starmer is the UK's Prime Minister, after the Labour Party won the general election earlier this year. But in France, the system is very different. The French Prime Minister is chosen by the President of France. The President usually picks a Prime Minister from the party in power, however he is free to pick anyone for the post. On the other hand, the President is directly elected by adults in France every 5 years. French law declares the President as the head of state, the chief public representative of a country. The President has control over things such as defense and foreign policy, which is relationships with other countries. Whereas the Prime Minister in France is the head of the government and is in charge of issues at home and the day-to-day running of the country. Be that as it may, French President Emmanuel Macron has said he will name a new Prime Minister in the coming days, after Michel Barnier resigned following a no-confidence vote in Parliament. In a 10-minute address to the nation on Thursday, he rejected opposition pressure to stand down, vowing to stay in his post, fully, until the end of the mandate, in 2027. He thanked Barnier for his dedication during his brief term as Prime Minister, and accused the French far-right and hard-left of collaborating in an anti-republican front to bring down the government. Finding someone who will not be immediately rejected by Parliament could be difficult for Macron, whose decision in June to call snap elections led to a deadlocked Parliament. The National Assembly is now split into 3 big voting blocs: the left, centre and far right. If Macron's next choice of Prime Minister is to last, it is thought at least part of the left bloc will need to be persuaded to join the next government. The President was due to hold talks with several political leaders on Friday, having told the French people he would appoint in the coming days a Prime Minister who will form a government of general interest. He was first due to talk to centrists in the Macron camp, before meeting socialist leaders, in the hope of persuading them to split from the broader left bloc, the New Popular Front. He will also talk to the right-wing Republicans. Socialist leader Olivier Faure said ahead of the talks that he was open to discussion and compromises on every issue, towards forming a government based on a fixed-term contract. But he made it clear he had little desire to ensure the continuity of Macronism. No new parliamentary elections can be held until July 2025, which might explain Faure's remarks on being open to a limited term for the next government. Responding to Macron's speech on Thursday, Marine Le Pen, leader of the far-right National Rally (RN), posted social media, a little reminder to President Macron, who is supposed to be the guarantor of the Constitution. Censure is not anti-republican, it is provided for in the Constitution of our Fifth Republic. The no-confidence vote that toppled Barnier's leadership had been tabled by both the New Popular Front (NFP) left-wing alliance and Le Pen's RN. They united to censure the government after the former Brexit negotiator used special powers to force through his budget without a vote. Macron has been heavily criticized for deciding to call snap elections, creating a deadlock in parliament and an escalating political crisis. He admitted in his address that his decision was not understood. Many have blamed me for it, and I know many continue to blame me. It's a fact and it's my responsibility. Addressing voters directly, he said some of his political opponents had chosen chaos over responsibility, and that they were not thinking about you, the voters, suggesting their focus was on the next presidential elections. Macron gave no indication of who the next prime minister would be, but said their immediate focus would be the budget for 2025. Speculation has been swirling over who could be named, with potential candidates including Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu, Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau, and centrist former presidential candidate François Bayrou. Before Macron chose Barnier as Prime Minister, he asked his predecessor Gabriel Attal to stay on as caretaker for 2 months after the summer elections. It seems highly unlikely that the next government can be in place before Saturday, when world leaders including US President-elect Donald Trump are due to attend the opening ceremony of the rebuilt Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. The building was devastated by fire in April 2019, and its reconstruction little more than 5 years later has drawn worldwide praise. Macron said the rebuilding of the ravaged cathedral, plus France's successful hosting of the 2024 Olympics, were proof that we can do great things. The Prime Minister is the holder of the second highest office in France, after the President of France. The President, who appoints but cannot dismiss the Prime Minister, can request resignation. The government of France, including the Prime Minister, can be dismissed by the National Assembly. Upon appointment, the Prime Minister proposes a list of ministers to the President. Decrees and decisions signed by the Prime Minister, like almost all executive decisions, are subject to the oversight of the administrative court system. Some decrees are taken after advice from the Council of State, over which the Prime Minister is entitled to preside. Ministers defend the programs of their ministries to the Prime Minister, who makes budgetary choices. The extent to which those decisions lie with the Prime Minister or President often depends upon whether they are of the same political party. If so, the President may serve as both the head of state and de facto head of government, while the Prime Minister serves as his deputy. Michel Barnier, born the 9th of January 1951, is a French politician who has served as Prime Minister of France since September 2024. A member of a series of Gaullist parties UDR, RPR, UMP, LR, Barnier has served in several French cabinet positions under the government from Édouard Balladur to François Fillon from 1993 to 2009. At the European Union (EU) level, Barnier was European Commissioner for Internal Market and Services from 2010 to 2014 and Vice President of the European People's Party (EPP) from 2010 to 2015. From October 2016 to 2021, he was the EU's chief negotiator on Britain's exit from the European Union. Emmanuel Jean-Michel Frédéric Macron, born the 21st of December 1977, is a French politician who is serving as the 25th and current President of France and ex officio one of the two co-princes of Andorra since 2017. He previously was Minister of Economics, Industry and Digital Affairs under President François Hollande from 2014 to 2016, and Deputy Secretary General to the President from 2012 to 2014. He has been a member of Renaissance since he founded it in 2016.